Hello, everyone, and welcome to Information Requested. I am Remixed, and your other host is Bamfius, or
Hey,
Bamfilosophy. He's got lots of names. I've only got one. So,
cheers.
welcome. And on this episode, we're going to be talking about the questions that you suggested Bamf asks of Will. And we surprisingly had quite a few good suggestions.
It's
So,
not that surprising. There's some good ones on Reddit too. I might have to pull up Reddit while you're talking about some of the YouTube ones. Also, honestly, if you want to read some questions that I've responded to, saying that he's already answered, we can talk about the answers to those. And then I also want to talk about the fact that I don't need to do this, but I kind of want to address some unhappy people, like very minorly, because
right.
honestly, the guy is probably having a bad day. Other people are probably having a bad day. Um, but just the not qualify why we're doing it this way, but just talk about it a little bit. I think that might be something worth going
Yeah,
into.
definitely. For sure. So, I guess to get started, I wanted to just pick out my favorite question from the comments. Um, and
Okay.
that was, let me see if I can find it now. I just had it up. Um,
Tisk. Was it about
there it
the
is. I
like
found it.
the little
It's,
helpers?
yes. So it's by Bridget Gutting. I'll just read the whole thing. Congrats. That's got to be exciting and nerve wracking. Uh, Question for Will. So, a while ago, Will mentioned that for his next series, he wants to get away from having the cutesy small companion, Little Blue, the dolls from Traveler's Gates, Shuffles. Is there something that he hasn't explored yet and he wants to, whether it's a magic system, setting, character archetype, or a different genre? I think that's a really good question, especially because,
It's good.
yeah,
It's really good. And I don't know if the reason I think is good is the same as the asker, just because well, I'll just go ahead and explain it. So Will has talked about why he always has provided someone for the character to talk to. And it's when the character is alone and doesn't have someone to talk to, there's a way to engage in dialogue that can provide plot or setting or world building or challenge the main character to be introspective. It is a tool that Will has used consistently through all of his series, although it's less so in Elder Empire because Calder had people around him most of the time, and Shuffles was more like a comedic uh, break, like broke the tension, and then it allowed for a really satisfying. Like spoiler alert, like Shuffles has intelligent thoughts. It allowed for something interesting at the end. But yeah, I honestly would be interested to know if Will has thought about other ways of doing this, because the more he does it, the more tropey it feels for the Willverse. Like all the Abaddon have a presence. Is there like little mini versions of this in every iteration? I
right.
don't know.
I hate to call it a trope. Um, just because there's a negative connotation with that. And I kind of like the
Well,
way I like the solution. I feel like it's more of a solution than a trope. And maybe uh, if it's part of every single thing he writes, then maybe it could get a little old. But it just fits so well in the Cradle universe, especially. I would say that I wouldn't on. It's like not a surface level thing that people are bound to notice.
but yeah,
And my,
it's interesting in the context of the fiction world, and it's also interesting in the context of the writing tool.
right, yeah.
So I mean, in some way, shape, or form, that's probably worth asking. I don't.
Yeah, it's
I'm not
definitely a good
saying that
question.
no one else's question might get picked up because y'all surprised me with the quality of questions, like the thoughtful questions,
Hmm.
and you did a pretty damn good job of keeping it away from Cradle while still like tying it back into
Yeah,
Cradle.
it's okay. I think maybe I don't know if we misspoke on the previous episode, or if maybe we were just misunderstood. But I think I said don't ask specific Cradle questions. I
Yeah.
think that maybe I went too far in that.
Well,
It's okay to ask stuff related to Cradle, but it's not. It's like don't ask
it just,
for
the
plot.
chances of you
Like
getting picked are
yeah,
like almost zero if you ask me to ask a Cradle question. And let me explain the whole thought process behind this. Okay.
right.
One, Will doesn't like doing interviews. Okay. He's already going to answer your Cradle questions when he does the book launch. He almost always has a fan event for book launch where you can pre-submit Cradle questions and they will get asked of him during that stream. Okay.
Hmm.
So me asking him is a waste of time when we can be at like interviewing him or talking to I could be interviewing him or talking to him and getting something that we won't get on the book launch stream. Okay. Second of all, I'm trying to create an interview with him that hasn't been done before so that when people are interested in learning about him, about his work, they can find this interview and learn things that won't already exist everywhere else. And I think that that's fair. It's a win for Will if we can accomplish it, and it's a will for or it's a win for the channel. Oh my god, it's a win for the channel if we can accomplish it. I'm not a practiced interviewer, but I've met him in person and I know him, so I think that we can have a pretty chill conversation. Um, Maybe if he enjoys doing it, we can do it again. And I guarantee you, his happiness factor will decrease if all I did was ask him Cradle questions. Like
Yeah.
I can just picture him looking at me like, "You're better than this, Garrett. You're better than this." And I wanted to give the community an opportunity to ask questions that are better than that. And most of you rose to the occasion, and some of you couldn't get past it. And for that, I'm giving you a digital hug.
Right. Okay, so we talked about Bridget's question. Let's go to a question that you liked.
Well, I want to talk about some not suited for work questions that I thought were hilarious. And they were fan submitted. I won't say where they were submitted, but there's three of them that I thought were great. And I'm going to say them now. And there's a chance that I may ask one of them because I told Sam and he thought one was funny. Okay, so the first one is uh, what is Will's safe word? Is it Oreo? Which I
I
which
love
I
that
think's
one.
hilarious.
uh,
Uh, but of course, if I ask Will, he'd just be like, "Yes." Moving on. Like
yeah.
I guarantee you that's what he would say with that if that question was asked. The second one was if Akura Malice is the chain keeper, who is the original chain giver? Which is basically asking like who's her
uh,
daddy or whatever.
that's so
And
funny.
so you know I that can't be asked because even if he answers in good faith, the uh, the thirst that will emerge from the fandom is just it's a waste. It's a waste of
Yeah.
everyone's time and energy.
People will be begging for book 9 harem at that point.
Nope, nope. So then the final one is my favorite, and it is not a Cradle question. It is an Asylum or Elder Empire question, and it is what would be the most dangerous object to read in an asylum brothel, like an ancient asylum brothel? Which is a really interesting question from like a magic system perspective, but it's also kind of hilarious. I might ask that. If like the conversation opens up to that, I might ask that.
I feel like some of you out there that like to write fan fiction can make that one make Will's answer into a
There's
very
already some
interesting
great
experience.
yeah, there's already some great short stories about Elder Empire that are creepy as hell. You could make a super creepy. It doesn't even have to be like sexualized at all. It could just be creepy. Like you know,
Yeah. I'm definitely looking forward to Will's answer on which any of those that you decide to ask. Um, I'm hoping he'll find them as funny as we do, because if not, it could get awkward. But
Yeah,
so
and so if you haven't found another one, I will see if I can find one real quick. Oh, here's a uh, this is a funny question. I'm not going to ask it, but it made me feel bad about myself. So I think it's worth bringing up because the world always likes when I'm self-deprecating. So this question was asked by Jake S. He said, during my investigations, it seems like there's a negative correlation between the amount of facial hair and the fantasy author's writing speed. Does Will have any comments on this theory? And for like an aspiring writer slash author with facial hair, this question makes me sad, and I feel personally attacked, but not as personally attacked as Patrick Rothfuss and George R. R. Martin feel. So great question, Jake. Don't know if I'm going to ask it, but that was awesome.
that's so meta.
It is so meta, but I think it'd be pretty funny because like yeah, Brandon Sanderson, clean shaven, prolific. Will Wight, clean shaven, prolific.
Hmm.
And
That's
so I have
actually a really good point. I'm gonna start
two
making a
examples
data
on each
chart,
side.
a plot chart, facial hair length versus last book release.
And then you could call out the anomalies. We can give those authors a shout out for breaking the magical beard to publishing speed barrier.
So I'm thinking of one anomaly, and that would be Christopher Paolini. I'm pretty sure he doesn't have much of a beard, and he hasn't
It
released a
doesn't
book in a long
count
time. So
because he wrote all his original books before he could grow a beard. You know what I mean?
true,
Like so
true.
like all of his writing power happened before he could grow a beard. And once he could grow a beard, his publishing speed dropped. He did recently publish a book though. It just
Did he? I
wasn't an
actually haven't
inheritance
I
book.
haven't looked at it. So
Yeah, I think it actually won some awards.
hmm.
Um, oh, here's a question that I loved. And I thought it was a great question, and it's something that is worth asking. This is from Spunky Hydra, which is a great name. He said, "Hey Bamf, you could rephrase this question, but what I would ask is, what is his approach to writing martial arts or fight scenes? He's mentioned that he can write these scenes. I'm paraphrasing that he can write these scenes all day. And he's always comfortable with them. Has he had any formal martial arts training? If so, does he use it as research? If no, where does he get most of his comfort from writing fight scenes from? Why is that so comfortable for him? Because I do find that interesting.
Yeah, that is interesting. I wonder if he's got a martial arts background, or if he's just read a lot of
Will, no offense, I'm gonna guess no.
yeah.
I mean, I'm. Do you have a martial arts background?
Uh, I guess it depends on how technical you want to get. I was in Taekwondo as a kid, so martial arts
Did you
background.
did you achieve the mythological black belt
No, but
as
I
a
did.
kid?
I got to blue belt, so
Okay.
middle of the
Do you
road.
do you think that I have a martial arts background?
Do I? No,
I do. See,
you
you can't
do.
ever tell. Yeah, I got a. This is actually kind of a stupid story, but I got a black belt in Taekwondo
That's
when
awesome.
I was in high school, and I competed in a bunch of tournaments, and I don't know if Hapkido has a belt system, but I like did all the joint locks that you need to do to pass the first whatever.
Hmm.
Um, and then when I went to college, I learned that Taekwondo is not a good real world martial art because I kind of got into UFC and MMA and stuff. And
Yeah.
then when I got out of college and I had money where I could afford martial arts training again, I I found a Taekwondo gym that also did MMA training and some jujitsu training, and I like pretended that I was not a black belt in Taekwondo, and so that was kind of fun. So I like earned a black belt again
Oh
in
wow. Yeah.
Taekwondo,
Yeah.
and it was like different forms, so it's still kind of like fun, but the sparring was the same. And we also did some jujitsu training and rolling, and then there was like an MMA class where you worked on like ground and pound, cardio, explosive movements, double leg takedowns, single leg takedowns. Pretty
Hmm.
fun. Yeah, but I mean, I haven't done it in a couple years, and that's probably why you're judging a book based off its cover or remixed.
Uh, I mean, I don't think I would ever presume anybody had a martial arts
Well,
background unless they
also,
were
yeah,
actually wearing their martial arts uniform. I don't know. Or
or like had
doing martial
cauliflower
arts.
ear, and you like don't you can't see my ears.
Oh, yeah, true.
Yeah. Um. So I mean, it's a valid question. It would be interesting to talk about. I know that he consumes a lot of literature or a lot of like non-literature, but like stories.
Hmm.
He said he read over 1,000,000 words in his like second month of his vacation in one of his blog posts. And I know he has watched a lot of anime or read a lot of manga, which has a lot of pretty in-depth and interesting, sometimes intricate fight scenes.
That's true. So, I know I mentioned this in, I think, our very first episode, but I sent an email to Will, called him with the subject title "Information Requested," um, and I asked him if his writing had anything to do with Dragon Ball Z and Wuxia, and he said, "It's funny you say that. Dragon Ball Z definitely inspired uh, the idea behind Cradle." And then I can't remember his exact phrasing anymore, but yeah, so he definitely pulled something from something martial arts related, since Dragon Ball Z is also
Yeah.
very into
So
that. So
this is a throwback to episode 1 of Information Requested before we had a name for it, where both Remix and I recount how we got into Cradle and any experiences that we had with Will. So if you haven't watched that yet, it I think it's worth reading. There's some audio stuff. Remix sounds like he's I think a mile away, but you can still understand him and hear him.
yeah, episode
Uh,
one's a little
Going
scuff.
back and listening to, definitely worth going back and listening to. A couple
Definitely.
other questions that were asked that already exist in the world. Moneyman asked, "What was Will's writing process for Winter Steel?" Because it felt like it flowed sooner. Will has talked pretty extensively about the difference, and I will try and recount from memory or recap from memory what he basically did. And normally, Will writes the scenes that he think are important, and he cuts out the scenes that he doesn't think are important. And then when he goes through the editing process, scenes that he originally thought were important get cut. So you get like the super trimmed down version of what could have been written. For Winter Steel, he said, F that. I'm going to write every scene that I can think of, regardless of whether or not I think it should be in there. And then going through the beta reader process and the editing process, we will trim it back. That's why Winter Steel was like by far the longest book. And it's important though, because that was a book that required that amount of information to progress the story where it needed to be for the next book.
I That prompts me to think of a question. I don't know if it's. Uh, I feel like the answer to it could be too long for an interview, but I want to know if Will has an idea of what he would have cut out of Winter Steel, um, had he used his original writing process. Like, what was in Winter Steel that probably wouldn't have been if he didn't use the beta
Okay,
readers?
I think there's something there. So if I were to ask him, this is the way I would phrase this question. So you wrote Winter Steel differently. What was the scene that made it into the story that you originally didn't think it was whenever you wrote it?
Yeah, yeah, that's a really good uh, way of putting it, for sure.
If you hear me typing, I apologize. I'm going to mute myself while I write this down. So, Remixed, do me a favor and fill the void with your sultry voice while you read another question.
Sure. So this one is from Fenrir Wolflord. Um, he says, "So here's my question. Before Will had 3 series going at once, did he find multi-projects to be helpful for his writing, since when he finishes one book, he can work on a different one? Does he plan to have 3 again, or maybe just stick to 2 series at a time?" Um, he also
I'm
says
back, by
sort
the way.
of... Okay. He also says sort of cheating, but a secondary question. Will to me is amazing due to just how unique each of his worlds feel, both in style and magic, etc. Is there a type of style or magic or word element that he is excited or interested in trying? So I like the second question better than the first one, but the first one is a lot about his writing process. Like, does he find it helpful to be writing three things at a time? Uh,
Yeah, I think that the this is going to be really like I'm making a huge reach in assuming what I'm about to assume. But what that first part feels like, and I could be very wrong, and I apologize if I am. It feels like the person that's asking it is a fan of multitasking, and they're hoping that because they like to be engaged in multiple projects, so does Will. Um, I have read a couple things that Will has written with regards to people writing their first manuscript, and it always boils down to just finish it. Just finish it, focus on it at the extent of all of your other little side projects. Don't let yourself get distracted. We all have a limited amount of willpower as it stands. Devote all that willpower to finishing your work. And I don't think Will actually ended up having three projects going at the same time because I think he finished. I'm almost positive he finished the Traveler's Gate series before he started Cradle. I think.
mhm.
Maybe I'm like
So
90%.
I will. I'll speak on it too. I'm sure Will might have a different answer, but I have very severe ADHD. I know sometimes it doesn't seem like it, but I am medicated. So, but but
Heavily medicated.
so ADHD is kind of like you're multitasking all the time involuntarily. Um, and I will say that choosing one direction has always rewarded me the most. Like when I can pick one thing out of the 100 million things that I always want to do at the same time, when I finally settle on one thing and manage to keep my attention on it for more than 2 hours at a time, that always ends up being the my best work, quote unquote. So an example is like the Unreal Engine project for Cradle, or when I actually decided to start studying for calculus when I was in college. A lot of different stuff like that. But yeah, if uh, if Will is anything like that, I think focusing on one thing is probably the best bet when it
And
comes to that.
to provide a different perspective to what this question or Fenrir might have been asking. By the way, Fenrir has been a big fan of the channel for a while, so shout out to him. Uh, that name is very distinctive, and I will remember it every single time I see him or her in the comments. So, another perspective could be: is this a potential tactic that an author might use to prevent burnout and to stimulate innovative or new ideas? And that's valid. I think that burnout is a serious, serious thing, especially when you're an author like Will or Brandon Sanderson and you're capable of writing tens, and this is in the plural, tens of thousands of words in a day. Um, Will took a vacation because he did burnout, but I don't necessarily think that was due to the fact that he was focused too much on one thing. I think it was because that the Elder Empire series took finishing that up took so much of his willpower and his effort that it drained him to the point where he had to write Winter Steel in the way that he did because of his like impending burnout. So like he didn't want to put any extra effort or thought into assuming what the reader might want. He trusted his team for that. Again, this is all assumption, right? So that I mean, but that could be a thing. So having multiple projects, something that you go to when you stonewall on on whatever you're working on to reinvigorate yourself, that's valid. I think it might be worth chatting with him about. I don't know if this interview's the best place to do that because I think that that question requires some initial discussion before like the conversation goes to where that's like a natural thing to talk about.
Yeah, that also
But
might
definitely worth.
stem a longer conversation more so than an interview, probably.
Yeah, and just to clarify, I think I don't know this for sure because it hasn't been explicitly stated, but implicitly, I think that I have about a half hour, give or take, when we end up staring at each other awkwardly and the silence extends from awkward to uncomfortable, and then I have to like end it and edit that out.
uh,
I hope that that doesn't happen. I doubt that it will happen, but I think that we got to respect his time. I believe it's been implied that I get about a half hour. So you're right. I don't want him to talk about some random thing for for 15, 20 minutes, and I can't ask anything else.
yeah. Um, let's see. Were there any other questions that we wanted to go over?
There's a couple of questions that I already have on my list that I can talk about, just to give everyone a little teaser of what I will be asking.
Sure.
Yeah, I'll do that while you look for some stuff, and then you just let me know whenever you found something. Okay, so I'm definitely going to ask him about his vacation. I'm going to ask him about what his expectations were going in, how it ended up being in reality, if he was surprised by anything, how long it took him to truly feel like he was decompressing. We've talked about this already. It takes a while, in my estimation, for someone who hasn't taken a vacation in a while. You almost need like a vacation to prepare you for your vacation before you can actually start relaxing. So I want to just pick his brain on that to see how long it actually took. Um, I want to understand if he and the team have figured out or have a system or something they're going to experiment with to help him maintain the work life balance in the future, so that this isn't something that happens again, because we had an imbalance and then the correction was the vacation. So we had the imbalance and the correction. What are we going to do to try and stay the course, and maintain that like harmony? So that's something I'm just really interested to hear about, because this is a new company, right? Hidden Gnome Publishing is new. They are figuring out how to do this on their own, and they've done a great job so far. So personally, I'm very interested to hear what they have all come up with as a family and as a company for managing their best author, because there's a follow-up question later on, which I'll just segue into now, which is, what would it take for an author to qualify to become an author under the Hidden Gnome Publishing behemoth?
Right.
Because they're
Or
solving a problem for Will,
mhm.
and I really doubt that they would have the same sort of deadlines or stuff on another author. But like, what have they learned from this? And if they ever do accept another author, like what would that even look like? And this might be something he can't talk to. I don't know. It's just on my list of things I could ask, but am interested to know. He's been asked this before. Like, what would it take for another author to qualify in his eyes, to be a part of their publishing company?
Right.
What are your thoughts on that?
I like that idea. As a hopefully a future author, I'd like to know a little bit more about publishing startups in the first place. I know Dakota Kraut started his publishing company, and this seems kind of almost in a similar way, like just a very successful uh, self-published author, like getting a new thing off the ground. I just want to know more about how Hidden Gnome Publishing came into being in the first place, I think. So that's I'm just interested in that in general, and I don't know much about the publishing business myself, so I think anything I can glean from the author's perspective would definitely be an uh, interesting conversation.
Yeah, that actually brings up a question I wanted to ask, but I don't think I should. And it's like, how does he feel now that his publishing company's grown enough to where he's working directly with Audible, Amazon, Kindle? And how frustrating is it when those companies screw up consistently?
Yeah, I'm not sure that that would be a good.
Yeah, because like I don't
It's a
think
great question, but I mean,
I
if
don't think
he,
that he could. That's something that like you talk about like with a friend. like off the record.
Yeah,
Um,
having
you
that
know,
out in the
that's
public is just
no,
probably
yeah,
not
yeah.
good for business.
But I bring it up here because for those of you out there that are aspiring writers or authors or have started publishing, these are things that you should think about when like to help manage your own expectations. And I think that the Hidden Gnome team has done an exceptionally good job at just staying the course when things go weird or wonky. I think that they've done a great job. Um, so that's it's just still an interesting concept. Like you're a self you're a self-publishing house. You don't have a lot of power. Your books are selling really well, and so you attract these behemoths, like these mega corporations,
Hmm.
and they want to work with you exclusively. And they break their own contracts on accident by leaking stuff. You have no power or recourse for that.
Yeah, you're
Like well, you can't do anything.
that.
It's
What was
got
the
it's
most
got it's
recent
got
one
to
that
be tough.
happened? The like Winter Steel auto, like the first chapter got
No,
leaked or something
that's
like
not
that,
even
or was it?
the recent one. The most recent one. So I don't even know. I think half the fandom doesn't even think that it was real. But Audible leaked. They like had a bug in their system where they, if you finished Winter Steel, they must have already created the like the database structure for the next book
Oh, the next in
because
series.
they had it linked. Like Audible or Amazon and Kindle. I don't know if you noticed this, but they've rolled out this new feature where it like groups series into one.
Hmm.
So on your Amazon list, you can. It's no longer you have to look at books individually. Like you click on the series, it opens up, and then you have all the books in that series.
Yeah,
Um, they recently rolled out this feature, so they have to link books together as parts of a series. And I guess when they did that, Audible didn't have like a in software we call it a feature flag, where the code is in production, but it's behind a launch toggle, so you can't see it
mhm.
until it's ready to be launched. They didn't have a feature flag or a launch toggle behind this, and so they're we don't know if it's the actual cover of Bloodline or if it was just like a placeholder cover, so that they could test that their book 9 database, whatever, all the information was correct.
Yeah, I've seen that
Uh,
before. Usually the placeholder is usually just a blank screen with the three lines, the Audible logo, but I think it's just grayed out. But
yeah, I don't know, but we saw what could have potentially been the Bloodline cover.
yeah,
That was the most recent one. But the worst part of that, and it's something I don't think many people know because only one person was able to do it. If you were savvy enough, you could have pre-ordered the book in that window of time before they removed it.
yeah,
Either way, um, that's the most recent one I know of. The big one though was the Winter Steel preview release before the book was out, where it showed
yep.
the prologue,
And like
all
chapter one,
chapter
right?
1, and then like 85% of chapter 2.
Yeah,
Yeah. That was whatever. But again, like Winter Steel was amazing. I think it just hyped everything up more. Not that leaks are ever good, but in that case,
I think it helped in that case, but
well, and also one of Will's, he wrote a post about this, and this is what I'm referencing. The main thing that annoyed him was that some people were able to access it, some people weren't. And the people that weren't really wanted to know or have access to it. Some people didn't want to have access to it, and they were worried that things were going to be spoiled that Will didn't want any of
yeah,
his fans
yeah.
to have happen to them. So that's just one of those things. Um, anyway, let's get back to. Did you end up finding a question?
Um, I saw a couple of other ones. I don't think they're worth mentioning. They got answered in the YouTube comments. Just stuff that's already been answered that I don't think qualifies for this. So yeah, I think at least for the YouTube comments, that's it for questions. Did you have any others that you wanted to go over, or should we move on?
So I haven't looked at some of these questions in a long time that I wrote a long time ago, and one of them I'm reading, it's pretty dumb, and so I want to share it so
Okay.
that all of you know that there is a such thing as a dumb question, and everyone's capable of writing them, uh, mainly me. So this question is so dumb. Like I don't know why. Uh, Anyway, so I wrote, "Be honest. How often do I go so deep off the rails in my videos that even you question what is true on Cradle?" So dumb. Can you imagine like the ego that I must have had when I wrote that? But then at least I put in parentheses something like this. Like this is a question that's like a work in progress.
Yeah. The
Um,
I don't think it's as bad as you think. Just
you don't think so?
you know how like anytime you think back on something stupid you did as in high school or even further back than that, and you just cringe because you're like, how could I be so stupid? It's like when you think about that. I read something very recently that made me feel less bad about all these stupid things that I did, and it says if you feel stupid that you did that, that means you've grown as a person since you did that thing. So it's actually
I love
okay
that.
to look back on stuff and cringe.
Yeah,
So
it's just it's I guess the level of cringe denotes the disparity or the gap between your old self and your new self.
exactly. So if you look back on something and you think you're awesome, then you haven't grown much, and you should probably. I'm just kidding.
Yeah, I will tell you this. I never watch my old videos. Like there are times when people are like, "Yeah, Banff had this theory about this, or whatever," and I think to myself, I have no memory of that. I have no
Yeah.
memory. Like I literally like I remember one time somebody told me that I called out the fate icon and something like that as it pertains to Athan, and I
Hmm.
had no memory of it, and I like couldn't even remember what video it was because sometimes on these videos I'll go on a rant and I'll
Yeah.
like say something coherent, but I won't remember, like I won't know how I got there, and then I won't ever watch it again, so I just forget.
Yeah.
Um, Theory crafting. Yeah. So here's a one or two other questions that I wrote down that I think are decent questions. One is how often does new media inspire your work? And then another one is what makes an idea tenable for a workable story versus what doesn't?
Oh, that's a
And
really good one.
I think that's an interesting question because it we all have ideas that we think are great, but growing an idea from a seed into a story, that's a process that I don't
That's
have
the
much
work.
experience with, right? I mean,
Yeah.
exactly. That's the work. That's the art. And as someone who has done it so many times successfully, I think it's definitely worth hearing his
That's
response.
actually I won't talk about it for too long because it has nothing to do with writing. I guess maybe technically programming is a lot like that. Taking an idea. That's like how I got into programming, and why I decided to make it my career is because you can take an idea and out of thin air you can create something, create any reality you want technically in programming. Like I could, if we had a computer that was powerful enough, we could recreate the world as it is today. Um, in any capacity. I think that's uh, it's almost like a seam, like it's where writing and computers meet. It's like almost the same thing. Like programming has like almost the same creative outlet that I think writing novels does. So
You know, there's a really it's a couple years old now, but every few years a Reddit thread crops up where programmers that are also writers talk about like the consistencies and the parallels between the two crafts, and it's
mhm.
really interesting. And for a long time, I've had this thought in my head that software programming or like just software engineering is similar to it's like our version of spellcraft.
Yeah, definitely.
Like the really talented cutting edge engineers are like the wizards that are have cutting edge like spell work. And like the hardware and the computers are like enchantments, like they're enchanted items. Um, there's like a network now between all the enchanted items that allows people to communicate long distances or store information. And cryptocurrency being like the latest um, enhancement and development, some enhancements and developments within crypto, some technological thought experiment breakthroughs are going to help change the world. And then I was thinking like, okay, well then what's the mana? Like what's the resources, right? And so
Hmm.
that's where money comes in. Like money and like power to a lesser extent are like the resources that help power some of these spells. That's
Well,
why
yeah,
you
I
have like
think.
startups that get like venture capital and stuff. This is like way off the rails now.
Oh no, it's great. I I've always I've liked the similarities between the two things, and I think that the only difference between magic and technology is understanding. Um,
Or our
so
technology is our world's magic.
yeah, it's
So I mean that's the way I feel. Like you are 200-ish miles away from me, probably, maybe like 150 to 200 miles away from me. I'm
yep.
looking at your face while you're obscured in some abyss, even though I know you're in like your upstairs like office media room. I'm in
Yeah,
my office and we're on this software that didn't exist 5 years ago
yep.
talking about books. You know what I mean? Like that's stuff that's doesn't exist in a lot of fantasy books.
Yeah, no,
Just because
it's
like,
crazy.
you know. So anyway, where do we take this podcast next or this episode
Um,
next?
so I think we're almost done, but we should probably talk about maybe what we've been reading. If you've been reading anything new, if maybe you finished the Art of the Adept series as it
I
stands
did.
currently, maybe give your thoughts on it now. Just a quick, did you like it? Uh,
Yeah, this is I want to have the Cradle admin like Lil Blue on to talk
mhm,
about this next topic that I'm going to bring up. It's the ever present difference between a book that you enjoy and a book that is good. Because I enjoyed Art of the Adept, and I think the magic system is cool and good. Some of the plot decisions, some of the pacing, some things were just a little bit off,
mhm.
and it makes me feel like being an author is so damn hard. I enjoyed it a lot. I will recommend it to pretty much anyone. Do I think it's a really really good book or really really good series? I don't know. I feel like I'm becoming a little bit of a snob in that regard. I'm not ready to assign it like the gold star of it's a really good series.
We should do a tier
But
list.
I mean, maybe, but like
Everybody else is doing
you would
tier
have yours,
lists.
I would have mine, and mine's gonna be like the snobby, like you know, book snob version. Like I don't know, like the more I read, the older I get, the more I talk to other people and understand their opinions, the more I realize that for a large majority of my life, I had no clue like what made a good story. I just enjoyed cool magic systems, the power fantasy, like where the main character just gets to accomplish all of his goals and overcome every obstacle. Just I mean, it's that's what fantasy fiction was to me.
Hmm.
And as I'm starting to like mature as a reader, and as I've tried to start writing, um, these books and stories and characters, it becomes a lot more nuanced and a lot more complex in my mind. And I can appreciate a more complex story. I can appreciate a more complex plot. I can appreciate character growth.
Hmm.
You know what I mean? So I don't know. I don't know. That's that's my little rant. I think the Art of the Adept is worth reading. I think it's a very enjoyable. I don't know if it's a good book series or not. Like as
So
far as like
I think a
that
book
gold
can
star.
be good without being perfect, or obviously nothing's perfect, but there can a book can be good and still not be as good as the best book you've ever read, I guess, is or even what your idea of a really good book is. So I would call that's what I mean by the tier list thing, I guess. So like if I were to grade, like if I were grading uh, a book, I would give Art of the Adept probably a B plus, maybe A minus, because I do agree that there's some things, there's some flaws that are not hard to find, but they're not enough to take away from what I would give it, what I would say is like a passing grade for a book, whereas like most lit RPGs are D, uh,
Okay.
and you could still enjoy a book that's a D, but good God, it's hard sometimes. Uh,
And again, like I agree with you. That's why I never want to be the guy that is like a book reviewer, right?
yeah, yeah,
Because then you have to get to the point where you're being so critical of something
you
that
stop
your
enjoying it.
attempt, yeah, that your attempt at criticality removes the joy from the process. And
Yeah,
that's not why I read fantasy fiction.
yeah. I don't think I would make a very good critic
He
either
likes
because
all books get a 5-star review.
I
Every book's
definitely
great.
don't do that. It's just I don't know. I feel like I'm very positive when it comes to literally everything, and
Yeah.
sometimes I'll oversee a lot of flaws until like 3 or 4 months later when I'm reflecting on it, and I don't know.
Mm,
So
that's fair.
I guess a good example would be Christopher Paolini's books. I thought were like the best thing ever one while I was reading them, and then like going back. Of course, I was in high school when I first started reading them, so maybe that's part of the reason is that I've gotten older and smarter. But going back to them and just seeing how they very blatantly copied like Star Wars and uh, just I don't know. It's like the my reading depth with was very shallow at that point. So
Mhm.
I guess from if you've never seen Star Wars or you haven't read a book that's like Name of the Wind, like a work of art, you don't know what you're missing. So maybe that's the best book you've ever read. So it seems like that's the ceiling, and the ceiling can move as you read more and more. So I don't know. It's hard to. I don't even remember where this sentence started, but it's done now. So that's the
Well,
end of
because we
this.
were talking about what we were reading, and you asked me if I loved Art of the Adept,
Right. Right.
and I really enjoyed it. It was very enjoyable to me. And then we got on to the topic of like good versus enjoyable, or like, are we being too harsh with what we consider to be good?
Right.
And then you
Yeah.
were talking about how as you read a book, it might be the perfect book for the present you.
Right.
But the older you get, as you said, we grow. And when we look back, the book is no longer the perfect book for the now present you, right?
Yep.
And
Yep.
so this is why I think it's always beneficial to read books, especially nonfiction books, multiple times as we get older, because the person that read that book is not the same person each time. Like there's a personal finance book. Actually, I don't know if I want to give that example. Um, so there's a here we go. There's a book called Atomic Habits by James Clear. It's on my desk right now. That's why I'm going to use it. The first time I read this book, the lessons that I got from it were really profound. When I reread it, I either get a deeper understanding of some of the concepts he was talking about, or something completely new that I missed the first time because I was too busy thinking about something else that he had previously said sticks out to me. And so it deepens my understanding of the base principles of what he's saying, as well as highlights new things I didn't see before. And that's one of the things that I like so much about the Cradle series is that it has rereadable value. So even after you grow as a person or you've read the whole series and you go back, there's something new that you can latch onto. Do I think Cradle is the best written book series ever? I don't. Do I Is it my favorite book series ever? Yeah. Yeah, it is. I haven't found anything else that hits that way. That gives that same excitement whenever I reread it.
Yeah.
So that's kind of my 2 cents there.
Yep.
Am I like 20 cents there?
20. Uh, so, Art of the Adept. This will be the final time we
Definitely recommend it.
recommend the
Definitely
book.
recommend it.
We've talked about it, I think, on 3 different episodes now.
The magic system is super cool. I love the magic system.
Yeah. Definitely give it a read. Let us know what you think in the comments or on Discord. We're always available for that. Um, I have a new book to recommend, and you're gonna hate me, but it is Lit RPG once
I
again.
mean, I'm not surprised.
Yeah.
You're consistent enough that I
So
can anticipate it.
So I was thinking about that the other day. So part of the reason why I keep finding lit RPGs instead of progressing fantasy is because there's millions of lit RPG books at this point. They're really easy to find, and it's really hard to find a good one. So when I do find a good one, and by good I mean better than most other lit RPGs, it sticks with me. So this one's called Dungeon Crawler Carl, and it is uh, sounds really dumb, uh, but
No.
but um, had an editor. That's one thing off the checklist.
Nice.
So the prose is
Okay.
good. There's not a bunch of glaring errors that a fourth grader might have made when trying to write this. Um, Let me think about. So the best way to describe this is this
Carl
man and his
crawls in a dungeon.
this man. I actually don't even remember if his name's Carl anymore. I don't.
Oh no. It
Uh,
must be a great book.
I well, I read it all in one day, so I did really like it. It's actually focusing on the main character and his ex girlfriend's cat, who
Dude, what is it with you and cat characters? This is the second book that you've like brought up that
oh
has a cat
yeah,
character.
uh,
Because like the goddamn cat from at the
oh
Art
my
of the
God, you're
Adept.
right. Because guess what? There's a
You have a
phrase
thing
in
with
this one.
magical cats, bro. You have a
So
thing with magical cats.
the cat's name is Princess Donut, and then the character ends up saying "God damn it, donut" like a lot. So
I'm
anyway,
not I'm not judging you. I'm not.
I
I
mean,
promise.
judge all you want. The book's good.
I'm just worried about you. Like
So
your face, like your whole body's getting darker. Like you're getting sucked into the lit RPG abyss.
I think I might have actually. I think the blinds might have gotten shut. That might.
Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah. So anyway, um, we have Carl and his cat Donut, and they happened to go outside, and right when they went outside, they started getting yelled at by a neighbor, and then the world ends. So
Okay.
like this, all of the buildings, anything that's considered indoors, is immediately flattened and crushed to nothing. So he's just out in the middle of a winter storm outside of his apartment, uh, and everything just disappears. He sees a head roll on the ground next to him because somebody was popping their head out the window. It was his neighbor that was yelling at him. So he has no idea what happens, and then he gets like a prompt that says, "Your planet has been taken over by such and such." Um, you have like two options. Like one is to like try to survive outside on your own, and then the other one is to go into one of these dungeon entrances that pops up all over the entire planet. And he basically becomes part of a game show where he's supposed to try to dive deeper and deeper into these dungeons that just came out of nowhere. And the corporation that took over his planet is about to be bankrupt, so they had to start the show early. It's super like there's a million different things happening, but the point is that it's got a really good uh, editor and author for sure. Like the I'm trying not to spoil it. It's so hard not to spoil stuff.
You look like you're about to spoil it.
Yeah, so I'm not gonna
You
do that.
you've got the
Uh,
spoiler look on your face.
if you like lit RPG or if you've never tried it, this is definitely a good one to start with. If you've never
Okay.
read a lit RPG, and it's actually got stakes. That's what I was looking for. There's not any of this respawning stuff that like I mean if That's actually a trope. Like if you die in the game, you die in real life. That's like a trope from the beginning of lit RPG, but now it's kind of gone the other way where you
Sword
can
Art
all,
Online.
yeah. You've it's kind of gone the other way now. So, but there's actual stakes in this one. It's really interesting. Highly recommend you pick up Dungeon Crawler Carl. Maybe I'll talk about it more in the next episode. But I just realized we went over like an hour already. So, is there anything else that
I
you
better
wanted
talk
to?
about what I'm about to start reading.
No, it's too late. We're done.
Too late.
I'm just
Well,
I'm just kidding.
sad panda. All right,
All right.
so Remix and I are in this group,
Oh
and
yeah, yeah.
there's another Will White fan in the poker group. He goes by Opsor. And the last time I talked about a book that he recommended, we talked about it on an episode that we had to delete because I thought I could reveal that we were having an interview with Will White, and then we couldn't. And then we talked about guessing what the big of announcement is, and then I couldn't. Anyway, Opsor has been asking me to read this book series, the Alex Veris series, for months. Months. And I told him I would read it. I just, you know how it is. I just haven't yet. And so he got so fed up with me that he just like bought them for me and gifted them to me and said, "You're an asshole. Here you go. Happy early birthday. Read the damn books." And so my birthday's coming up, and so I'm gonna read the books because I feel bad. That's the first time I've ever gotten a birthday gift that like obligates me to do something. But I'm actually kind of excited because he's the release date for this book was in 2013, the first book. So
Wow.
I have for whatever reason I feel like standards were higher back then. So I have some high hopes.
Before the self-publishing craze got out of hand.
Yeah, let's see, I was 23 back then. So yeah, it was on the precipice of just kicking off, I think.
Hmm.
But yeah, so that's what I'm going to start reading. So I'll have some feedback there. I don't know if it's fantasy fiction. I don't know if it's progression fantasy. Although I think there are progress it's it's might be progression fantasy adjacent,
Mm.
like Art of the Adept was.
So what I
Um,
just started reading, I'll go into that. So I don't know any if it's good or not yet. But God's Eye Awakening. It's by Alaron Kong, the famous father, quote unquote, of lit RPG. We talked about that a little bit.
I
I
don't
just
know the
started.
man. I've never read anything by him. I've only heard from the disgruntled masses.
There are
So
disgruntled masses, but I can't deny that I liked his books. So except for the last one, good God, I don't know what happened.
Aaron,
Um, but
so
I'm
you
trying it
started
again.
another Kong book.
Yes, but it's a different. It's in the same universe, but it's in a different character perspective. So I'm interested to see how that goes. Basically, the I think the plot is this guy dies and then becomes a god. It's called God's Eye.
Classic,
So
classic.
yep,
If only it were that easy, right? Just to die and become a god.
yeah,
Oh man, that sounds like a isekai type situation. Okay.
yeah.
Does he remember everything as he
Yeah.
enters
So far,
godhood?
he
Okay.
I'm only about 3 chapters in, but yeah, so far he remembers everything and he's learning how to be a god, and he has to choose a village to worship him. I think is where I'm at right now. So yeah,
That sounds like it has a lot of potential to go in weird directions.
hopefully it does not involve an entire chapter on diarrhea this time because that was the last book.
You know, I think that's a great place to close this out. I'm just gonna say one more thing.
Perfect.
I'd like everyone to congratulate Remixed on finally making the money in our weekly poker
Uh,
tournament.
I did
He
finally. I think it took five
survived.
times.
He survived a wild game.
It was
Uh,
actually really crazy. I was down to 1,000 chips, and there was still five up. So
and you fought your way back.
so
You
did
fought
Pape
your way
though.
back.
So
He did. And I took him out in one hand, by the way, for a heads up. Twice, 2 weeks. He doesn't play heads up. So if you ever get heads up against him, enjoy your victory, sir.
we'll see if that happens next week then.
We'll see. All right. Everybody, thank you for listening. This has been Information Requested. I am your host, Bamfilosophy and Bamfilosophy, and this is my co-host Remixed. And thank you for listening.
Catch you next time.